Hey there, everybody. It's the 3 a.m. Coney. It's been a really horrible week to be a Bengals fan. And Monday night was a horrible night to be a Bengals fan. And a lot of things went wrong in a moment that could have been the moment that they captured the season, that they captured everybody's attention, that they proved that they were the team we all thought them to be, that we all kind of see that they are somewhere deep inside. But the continuous problems for the Cincinnati Bengals, whether it be offensive line play, whether it be Joe Mixon's regression, whether it be a literal myriad of things, and now on top of it all, injuries to their very best players that are helping derail what was supposed to be that Houday revolution, that, I don't know, fantastic season that I thought here, I think almost everybody across Bengals landscape, even those that are the most neutral, all thought was going to happen to this team. It's not happening for a myriad of reasons, and Matt and I are going to dive into those reasons today. Matt will join us a little bit later in the show, so I wanted to start right away by going to our Twitter account and talking about basically what happened in terms of the Cincinnati Bengals as the constant interruption by my cat continues. And in fact, I'm going to go lock her into the bedroom here in a second. So you're going to have to sit there with us while I do that, because I really cannot handle on a day like today this cat trying to absolutely mess up the podcast. I love my cat more than I love anything in the world, but at the same time, she literally just clicked us out of this, and that's why it's all reset, and now she just unplugged the charger of the computer, and it's an absolute nightmare, and it's an absolute disaster. So I'm going to take her to the bedroom, and I'll be right back. Well, at least my wife will enjoy that clip later of having to take her away. Anyway, we're back. It's been a horrible, 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 horrible time to be a Cincinnati Bengals supporter, as you can tell by my general demeanor. Although, life isn't too bad. But, when you start looking around at your life and go, man, what are all the good things in my life? As a Bengals fan, that's how you know that it's gone wrong, right? And when it's gone wrong, that's not what you want to see. You don't want to see things going wrong. And things have gone horrifically wrong for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to start with Joe Mixon. I tweeted this out. I got some heat for this, saying that it was unfair, that it's uncharacteristic of a Bengals podcast to be this negative. It doesn't really matter to me, right? Stuff Joe Mixon is okay at. Leadership. I like Joe Mixon as a leader. I like Joe Mixon in terms of what he's done off the field, all the things that he said recently. But he's bad at pass blocking. He's bad at breaking tackles. He's bad at just running forward and falling forward. I think his celebrations are kind of just about how he's playing. That one was a shot. I will admit, the celebrations was a little bit of unnecessary hate. And Joe Mixon is good at Twitter, although we haven't seen him much recently. The bottom line is, Joe Mixon right now is not even close to worth the money that he is being paid. And the question that I really have for this season is Joe Mixon the main issue right now with the Cincinnati Bengals? Well, they only ran the ball 8 times, 2 of the last 3 games, Lucas. How could you say that? Let's take a look at it, all right? I'm going to pull up these Joe Mixon stats because I've been upset with this. Rush attempts per broken tackle, okay? This is the low. All of these numbers I'm about to show you, and not even talking about traditional numbers, all of these numbers I'm going to show you are the lowest of Joe Mixon's career by a significant margin. It's his lowest yards per carry. It's his lowest all these things. And before somebody comes into the comments and goes, hey, but Joe Mixon barely gets the ball. How can you break tackles if you're not getting the ball? Joe Mixon is 4th in the NFL in rushing attempts, and that's despite 2 of the last 3 games he only gets the ball 8 times. The reason the Bengals aren't running the ball anymore, the reason they had to abandon the under center offense, the reason for all of this is because Joe Mixon can't break tackles anymore. He has completely fallen off as a running back. He went from an elite level guy getting compliments from Bill Belichick to, at 26 years old, which we often see as the running back cliff, this This is horrendous stuff down at 33. It's not even the worst stat I found. You want to see the worst stat I found? This one. 53 players, people, qualify for the yards after contact per rush stat. So what's that mean? Well, you get hit. How much further do you go? Guess what? A human body, most of these guys are 6 foot tall. How many yards are in 6 feet? 2. So every time you get hit, you just fall forward. You get 2 yards after contact. Every time you get hit, if you fall forward, you get 2 yards after contact. Joe Mixon right now is in the bottom 5 of this statistic, and the other 4 in the bottom 5 are freaking quarterbacks. Joe Mixon gets less yards after contact than Daniel Jones does. And I'm not saying that if you put Daniel Jones in the Bengals backfield that it would go well, but this number indicates that, hey, the Bengals might be better off trading for Marcus Mariota and handing him the football off because he's creating the same after contact as Joe Mixon is right now. And we see this time and time again. And we talked about this, and I talked about this before the year. How do you beat cover 2? You run the ball or you take checkdowns and your guys break tackles and make 10 to 15-yard explosive plays off of playing underneath. That is how every great team has gotten teams to stop playing cover 2 against them, and it just works every time. All you got to do is run the ball, hit your checkdowns, and your checkdown breaks 1 tackle every few plays. And Joe Mixon has simply not done that at a consistent level for the entire season. And it is really hemorrhaging the Bengals offense. I even heard Joe Burrow critique something that he doesn't control for the first time in his Bengals career this week. Now, it was a light critique. He says, yeah, we definitely got to get better with the run game. But I've never heard Joe make even a statement like that towards an area of the team. That is how much of a detriment this Cincinnati Bengals run game is to the team. And again, Joe Mixon is 4th in the league in rushing attempts. This has been tried. It's not about giving them the ball more, giving them more opportunities. I saw Coach Minich tweeting, which was, I love all these guys I'm arguing with today. Well, we need more second down runs. What? More 2nd and 9 runs to turn into 3rd and 7? No. The Bengals figured out that feeding Joe Mixon the ball is like beating your head into a brick wall. Last year, the brick wall fell apart. This year, they knew that it was never going to. And so they've had to give it up. And the most frustrating thing about it all is I'm pretty sure there's an explosive back, more explosive than Joe Mixon is right now. I know he did bad in the preseason, but I don't know. Give it a try. Chris Evans, give it a try. I'd rather see some Samaje Perine because at least Perine goes forward. You remember Ben Jarvis Green Ellis? I always thought Ben Jarvis Green Ellis he's literally like a computer running back because if you block for 8 yards, Ben Jarvis gets 8. If you block for -2, he gets -2. Joe Mixon, if you block for 4, he gets 1. If you block for 10, he gets 3. If you leave him one-on-one with a corner who hasn't been able to tackle all year, he makes it 2nd and 8. It has been, and this is something that is really, I've kind of thought about it over the last 2 days. I think that the regression of Joe Mixon was the one thing I didn't see coming, was the one thing that nobody really saw coming, and its regression to such a level that it has cost the Bengals probably 2 wins. You could make an argument 3. At this point in the season, because the run game has been inept from the start, and the offensive line, to be honest with you, is kind of fine. They're 3rd in run block win rate. So we've got Matt Roden popping on with us. It's been a frustrating week, Matt.
Yes,
a lot of people, and it's a frustrating week because it's a realization that this team, because of a multitude of factors, injuries, I think is one. Joe Burrow's appendectomy before the season, keeping him in the hospital for 6 days. But the one player that genuinely regressed at a massive rate is Joe Mixon. And it was at the same time that teams were going to dare the Bengals to give the ball to Joe Mixon. And it's led to, I think, a lot of inconsistent offensive results. And I really think that if I were to pick one thing right now to blame for the 4-4 record, if I had to pick one, I know it's not one, but if I had to pick one, I would pick Joe Mixon. I would 1,000% pick Joe Mixon because it's not just his production, Matt. It's the fact that he's $12 million and he's worth the price of 2 replacement starters elsewhere on this team.
Yeah.
And I've kind of come to that over the past 2 days that Joe Mixon is the biggest regressor and the biggest problem in terms of individuals on this Bengals offense.
Yeah, and looking at the entire season, I think you're right. We've had players that have had off games that, Jamar and Joe were not up to what we would consider their bar, their ceiling. But over the course of the entire season, Joe Mixon has been consistently not close to where we expected him to be for this year. And at first we thought, okay, maybe that's the offensive line, or maybe that's because the offense as a whole isn't rolling as much as they should be. So we haven't been able to run the ball as much. We've had to try to pass because they've been down by 2 scores and they haven't been able to, have Joe Mixon do what we thought Joe Mixon could do. But this has been a very, very frustrating week, not only because of Joe Mixon, but because of that entire game. With the Bengals losing to the Browns on Monday night. We had the get-right game with going into the Superdome with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase looking more like the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase that we wanted them to be after they were fantastic last year. And now the whole season is up in the air. We got injuries. We got another prime time struggle. We got, you have Bengals fans reverting back to the middle of the Andy Dalton, Marvin Lewis era, going, we're back. The Super Bowl was a fluke, and now look at us.
I don't think. I'm not that extreme on it, and I think that
I don't think we're close to that.
No.
If you saw Joe Burrow in the post game interview or in the what was it yesterday, like he's not worried. He's like, if we win one more game, we are at the same spot we were last year, 5-4.
Yeah, and I know that's what we're all going to be saying. And I told just that when the game ended Monday night. I was like, well, they'll just beat the Panthers next week, and we'll all be happy-go-lucky for 2 weeks.
Okay, and then they do not beat the Panthers.
No,
if
this
they do
is
not
like
crush the Panthers. Even with a depleted team on
they're not
offense
crushing this Panthers
and on defense, and with Kevin Huber, who I love Kevin Huber to death. Bearcat, Cincinnati kid. We got a tweet about that.
Oh, yeah. I've got a tweet about that.
Yeah. Said with love. Yep.
It is said with love. It really is, but he's been objectively the worst player on the team.
I just say, let him just fake punt every time now. It's not the risk reward of a 20-yard punt. Let him go out and fake punt every fucking time. Let Huber go out with a bang. He's going to take one of those for a touchdown.
You remember
and
when
then
the Bengals?
Be like, all right, that's a walk-off. You're done.
You remember on Monday night when Joe wanted to stay out there on 4th and 9?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's because
I thought they were.
Yeah, that's because Kevin Huber can't fucking punt anymore. And Joe Burrow's like, I would rather throw a go and have it picked off at the 10 because that's going to be a better result for us. Then
that might have had a little bit into it, but I think Joe would go for every 4th down if he could.
I think Joe would, but Joe is also a really smart football guy, and I think that he sees that there's just a chance that Kevin Huber is going to give a net 15-yard punt, and there was no point in it anyway, right? If you've got a guy, hey, he's putting the team inside the 10 every time he punts. There is legitimate value to that as a team. But if you can't pin people inside the 10, it's not inside the 20 anymore, guys. Every professional punter should be, if they can reach it, getting the ball inside the 20. It is about, can you pin teams inside the 10-yard line? Because it kills the drive most of the time.
Yeah.
And Kevin's not even close to doing that anymore. And I love Kevin, and he's the all-time games leader, and that's great, but the time is done. It should be over. And I think maybe a big part of it is now you've got the long snapper is different, and we see what happened to Evan McPherson. He's down to 24th in the league.
I think that's a big part of it, especially
kicking
with
DVOA.
with McPherson seemingly struggling last game too.
Yeah, but Huber hasn't been perfect on holds either. I think he was laces. I think he flashed the laces at Evan McPherson. You can talk about how it's the snapper and it's the whole operation. Well, I don't know. Maybe just get the 2 rookies working on the operation now so that maybe it's fixed by the playoffs instead of watching Kevin Huber punt at 29 yards a punt for the rest of the year and that costing you a playoff spot or a playoff game. I mean, he is objectively the worst player on the team.
The oldest. We'll just call him the oldest. He in his prime, Kevin Huber, absolutely fantastic. He was fantastic for the Bearcats, fantastic for the Bengals. I think he's just old and doesn't have the leg or the accuracy anymore. So,
yeah, I don't think so either. And this is another tweet
same
we
thing
had.
about Tom Brady, but
this is another tweet we had. Now, I didn't put Joe Mixon on this, but again, that's another evolution I've had over the last 2 games.
He's just an over.
I would put Joe Mixon, other than Pittsburgh. I thought he was good against Pittsburgh. But I would put Joe Mixon as the second reason that they didn't win these games, like for almost every single one.
Yeah.
Because he's just not been good enough. He hasn't been what we expected him to be. Is he doing something wrong? Actually, yeah. He's got the most sacks allowed by a running back, and that's what I'm told, Matt. The reason that Chris Evans can't see the field is because he can't pass block. Well, neither can Joe Mixon.
So at least put in the guy that could have an explosive
dude, I
run.
would take Giovanni Bernard right now. The Giovanni Bernard that is in Tampa Bay, that is doing almost nothing, that is not fantasy relevant. I would rather him on this Bengals offense right now than Joe Mixon because I know he's not going to give up sacks.
Yeah.
Because at least there's value there. Like Joe Mixon has gone, and think about it. Le'Veon Bell is 30, out of the league. Todd Gurley is 28, out of the league. Zeke Elliott is 27. Actually, I think Joe Mixon, great comp for him right now is Ezekiel Elliott. The only difference is Zeke is the best pass blocking back in the league, and Joe Mixon might be the worst. So I just don't understand why there's a refusal to take him off the field. Especially when, Zach, you took him off the field on 3rd and 1 and 2nd and 1 in the Super Bowl, but now he is the worst back in the league, and now we can't take him off the field.
Every play needs to be out there.
While he's on his most impressive run of his career, we don't want to run him on 2nd and 1 and 3rd and 1 in the Super Bowl, but while he's completely falling off the table, we're going to ride him like a horse. It makes no sense. It makes less than 0 sense. And from the comments we saw this week, Matt, I don't think it's going to change either. I've got a feeling that it's just going to be Joe Mixon all year, but they're just going to stop trying to run the ball, and that's going to cost this team a playoff spot.
There was that Najee Harris clip that was going viral where he needed 4 yards and he got the ball behind the line of scrimmage on a little pass out to the flat, and he just kind of danced and he waited for 4 defenders and then tried to dive forward, and he got like a yard. And he could have easily just muscled through the defender and made one juke move and then got close. And I watched that like, wow, that sucks.
Yeah,
You know,
I
I thought he was a lot better than that. And then I saw Joe Mixon do the exact same thing.
Yeah. And I just
the exact same thing. They needed 3 yards and he got none. I don't know. And we've seen him turn that into a lot more yards just a few years ago.
It's multiple things. It's one, he's getting slower. 2, he's lost his confidence. I mean, he's clearly just not a confident back anymore, and that might be Zac Taylor's fault. Now, if the Joe Mixon defenders out there want to say that he's a guy that rides on high confidence and he got benched during the Super Bowl on the last drive, even though that's not really what happened, but in his eyes, that's what did happen, is that he got benched on the last drive of the Super Bowl, a chance to go win the game. If that's what shot his confidence, then you can go ahead and blame Zac Taylor for him falling off the table. But no matter who you blame for it, what you blame for it, Joe Mixon's ankle, you can even blame for it. The bottom line is he's a 26-year-old running back who can save you $10 million off the cap as soon as by June 1st. He will not be a member of the 2023 Bengals. He is done. He is cooked. He is washed. And you know what? I would love, nothing more I would love in the world, Matt, than for this to be clipped out and shown to me in February and me to be laughed all over Bengals Twitter. I would love.
You thought he was washed.
You said he was washed. You said he was washed. But I cannot find, and I have looked, a single data point a single example in NFL history or any recent half chances of hope that Joe Mixon is going to get any better than he is right now. And right now, he is unplayable in my eyes. How bad is Chris Evans at practice that we're just going to keep watching Joe Mixon be a below average / potentially the worst starting back in the league before we try to make a change and try to do something else?
We can't have that.
No. And then another thing is it really hurts you when you play these elite pass rushers if you can't run the ball, because then they're just coming after Joe the whole time. And that's another tweet I wanted to talk about, is that the fatal flaw of this team has been revealed. And it's not the Max Crosby, Grady Jarrett, think like Sam Hubbard type, where they're really good defensive linemen, but they're not like elite. Bengals are fine against those. You can find great pass rushers they've beaten all over the place. But I would make an argument these 4 guys that you see on the screen are the 4 most talented pass rushers in the league. And all 4 of them have completely
they ate against
the
Bengals.
Ruined the Bengals. Aaron Donald, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, 25 sacks, 17.5 points per game.
Jesus.
0-4. So that's what happens when you line up an elite guy and the Bengals can't run the ball, they're going to lose. Joe, they don't have a good enough tackle. Like, they have a good enough tackles. They're not great, but they're good enough that you can kind of survive and manage. But if they're getting their ass beat one-on-one, then ball game's over. And we've seen that. And they don't just get beat against these guys. These guys destroy Cincinnati. And these guys are super motivated because they know that if they don't get to Joe, Joe's going to rip them up. And so there's a whole bunch of combination of things that leads to a stat like this, Matt. And it's one that worries me because you're not going to avoid an elite pass rusher if you're going to win a Super Bowl. You will play them. Whether it's Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa or Aaron Donald, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett. Maybe you can find 1 or 2 more names you want to add to that. Zadarius Smith is doing really well this year. We saw Jeffrey Simmons last year for Tennessee contribute to a 9-sack game, and he's one of those elite guys. You're going to see them on your run to the postseason, and right now, the Bengals can't beat them. And that's probably what's going to cost this team. The fact that they can't run the ball to counteract that, which is kind of what their plan was, even though their tackles aren't great. You can't win the Super Bowl this way. You cannot. Unless Joe Burrow is God on earth, which, by the way, in October, Matt, he's at a 113 passer rating. 113 passer rating, 74% completion. He would be on, if you took his October and paced it out for the year, he'd be on pace for 51 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. And the Bengals are 2-2 with that level of quarterback play.
That 60% completion rate streak is still alive, right?
Yeah, that's at 29 games now. 29.
There you go.
29. So,
Joe.
Joe, other than that Steelers game, Joe has been what we thought Joe would be. Like an elite quarterback that made a jump in his passer rating. Because the Steelers thing is bringing it down to 102, but everything, it's 110 since the Steelers game, which is 2 points higher than it was last year. But like the main concern right now, Matt, with Cheeto's ACL injury.
Yeah, that sucks.
Is this list right here.
Because he was playing fantastic this year.
Yeah. And I think that, would you agree with this, that these would be the 5 best Bengals players? Just raw talent, not thinking about positional value.
Yeah.
Is there, some people would have tossed Joe Mixon on this list before the season.
Joe Mixon would probably be top 10. I probably would have put McPherson right up there, 5, 6.
I can see that.
But yeah.
And it's
T. Higgins right there at 6. Or something.
And T's dealt with an injury too. Mm-hmm. So you could put T, you could put Evan, which Evan hasn't dealt with an injury, but his kicking operation has. And you can just go through the whole list and see that but the problem is, Matt, is we knew that something like this was very possible and could completely happen. Now the Joe Burrow 6 days in the hospital sucks. Jamar Chase missing sucks. So if you want to look for positives, it's that they're 4-4 despite this, but you don't get Cheeto back. And I don't. I don't think
DJ
this,
Reader should be back soon.
unless Cam Taylor-Britt completely just takes leaps and bounds every week he plays. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl without Chidobe Awuzie. I don't. Because Chidobe was legitimately becoming a lockdown corner. Like, take out Stephon Diggs from the game when you play Buffalo. Like, that's how good Chidobe Awuzie was becoming. And
without that, the Bengals defense is not. We had that second half streak break, and they scored 3 touchdowns or whatever in the second half, and it's like, okay, well, that streak is definitely over, and then I don't see that happening for most games. So the Bengals are going to have to start strong if they want to be able to beat teams like the Chiefs and Bills and Ravens when they play them again.
yeah, because I'm more worried just about Buffalo and Kansas City. I just don't think that I do not think the defense can do what it did last year against Patrick Mahomes, which is what got you to the Super Bowl, without Chidobe Awuzie.
Did you talk about for the first 10 minutes about the Bengals being a playoff team? With being 0-3 in the AFC North, losing to the Ravens and the Steelers and the Browns, and that they could beat them and go 1-1 against all of these teams before the end of the year. But how confident do you feel in the Bengals being a playoff team or winning the division at all?
I don't think they're going to be able to stop enough people to win the division. Cam Taylor-Britt. Cam Taylor-Britt is, if you want to send out some prayers as a Bengals fan, go pray for Cam Taylor-Britt. I'm not saying that he was even that bad, but he's got to get.
It's a lot to just throw him in and expect him to be able to handle.
Especially because, and this is what bites Lou Anarumo in the ass, because he's like, I don't rotate DBs. These guys haven't gotten reps. Now, I know Cam Taylor-Britt dealt with a core injury, but you're going to ask Dax Hill to play outside corner, and because I don't rotate DBs.
Yeah.
Now he's got this lack of experience on the back end, and there's a chance the Bengals get torched by PJ Walker. And I think that this Panthers team is a very live dog, and I think that this game is going to be extremely tough when they play Carolina, whether they're 7-point favorites or not. And I think that this game on Sunday is going to be a dogfight to the end. And if the Bengals can catch the break and win the one-score game that they've struggled to win so far this year, other than against New Orleans, they can save the season, regroup into the bye, get DJ Reader back for Pittsburgh, potentially Jamar Chase, but probably not. But at least you get DJ Reader back. Then you have a chance to redeem yourself. Road primetime game. You get the division win. Now you're 6-4, and the whole thing is flying. But this is on Sunday. It's going to be a dogfight. They are going to need to make plays to win the game late. And if they don't do that, the season's over. I am using my one, because I love Paul Dehner Jr. on The Athletic. He talks about, I only use one must win a year. I don't like saying must win, must win, must win, must win. And I haven't used must win yet. I was kind of there for New Orleans. I was kind of there after 0-2 against the Jets. But this specifically, this is it, guys. This is it. You got to win this game. 4-5 with the Chiefs, the Titans who want to kick your ass. Do you know how hard that game is going to be in Nashville? They hate us. They hate us. And there's no intimidation factor if you're 5-5 at best going into Tennessee. I think if they lose this game to Carolina, I think they'll beat Pittsburgh as some BS save the season crap. Then it's 5-5. I think they lose to Tennessee. I think they lose to Kansas City. I think they lose to Buffalo. So that's 3 more losses. Now you're at 8. Season's over. Season's over.
Yep.
And this team is so reliant on its own inner confidence and its own energy.
And momentum. That momentum that they had at the end of last season was enough to propel them into playoff wins and into the Super Bowl. Joe was playing out of his fucking mind. And now, with Jamar Chase coming back, they could have another just fuck it, Jamar's down there somewhere type of offense and get some of that explosivity back. But yeah, it is. I don't think they're going to lose this game. I'm not predicting blowouts anymore because I've been wrong every fucking time. But
I don't know, Atlanta, you got it.
Atlanta 15. 15 counts.
Yeah, I mean, that was a blowout. Atlanta was a blowout. I think the Jets were a blowout. I think the Dolphins ended up being a blowout. And I think that I think the Bengals win those games either way. I think the Bengals are still, because of Joe Burrow, a top 10 team in the league. But the problem is they've let too many things stack up, and this thing is a horse race, and the AFC is tough, that they now can't have anything go wrong.
Yeah.
So like if you're 5-3 or 6-2, and let's say Joe Burrow rolls his ankle and he can't be mobile for a few weeks, like you could survive that. If anything happens and Joe Burrow goes from an A+ where he's at now down to a B+, for whatever reason, season's over. Yeah. If Jamar Chase can't come back as the same player, season's over. You've set yourself up in such a hole that things now have to go perfect.
The things that could have gone wrong all did, and now everything else, there's no more cracks allowed in the foundation or the whole thing falls.
Yeah, and especially because it's going to be a momentum fall too. Like if they lose this game to Carolina, 2 weeks to sit on it, I don't even know if they can beat Pittsburgh if they do that. Like, because I just don't think the momentum will be there anymore. And I think because what everybody's saying this week, and I hate this, well, 5-4 is the same record as last year. We've said it before on this show. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what happens if you go 4-5? Now you just confirm to your whole team and everybody, well, we aren't even the same team as last year. Right? Instead of, and I feel like almost everything this year has been about last year. We said that back to training camp. The word Super Bowl just blah, 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 blah. Everybody's mouth.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's hard to overlook that, especially going to the Super Bowl and not winning.
Yeah.
For the Rams, for Rams fans, for the Rams team and their organization, they got to the Super Bowl and won it. And a Super Bowl hangover for them and being shitty this year doesn't have that much of an impact. It's whatever. Like we don't have to win a Super Bowl back to back, but for the Bengals and the Bengals fans to be able to get there, to have that playoff win, to go all the way to the Super Bowl and be 3 fucking yards, 3 fucking points short. It is okay. Last year we didn't have all the pieces. Let's get a little better. This year, this is when we make the meaningful run. This is when it was supposed to happen. This is when now we got a taste, and the expectations through the roof because the Bengals barely lost a Super Bowl doesn't help. It doesn't help confidence if you're losing games that you should win.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. You hate saying it's what everybody told you. I mean, that's what you hate saying, but it is what happened. I mean, we're yelling at Steven Ruiz because he's talking about kicking regression. Well, here's Evan McPherson at 24th in the kicking ratings. And even the people that were saying the Bengals will be a better team and win less games or win the same amount of games, they're fucking dead on right now. Because if you look at DVOA, SRS, all these advanced numbers, point differential, the Bengals are a top 10 football team. Top 10. I mean, top 10. They've got a top 10 quarterback. They have an offense that's in the top half in scoring. Same with the defense. So you've got the formula there for what should be a 5-3 team minimum, probably a 6-2 team, and they're 4-4 because of luck, bullshit, all that stuff. But really, I think the biggest thing, and that what everybody's ignoring, and what we talked about at the beginning of the show, is it's Joe Mixon regression. You had a Pro Bowl running back, 1,400-yard running back, break a lot of tackles running back, score touchdowns in the high red zone running back. Now he's just arguably the worst back in the league.
Yeah, and you had the new and improved Bengals offensive line this season, which was supposed to help Joe Mixon, and we have not seen that at all.
Yep. Well, let's get into our predictions. Bengals 7-point favorites last I saw it. I didn't have time to find the over-under there, Matt.
I don't know, 50.
50.
49 and a half. I'm not looking it up. Bengals, I think, win this game by 10. They'll cover the spread. It'll be less than a 14, 15-point blowout. Winning by 10, no one getting hurt. That's a win going into the bye.
Yeah, I think the Panthers have one of those, I don't think elite pass rushers, but Brian Burns certainly has those capabilities and would have been worth potentially multiple first-round picks if rumors are to be true near the trading deadline. PJ Walker's a much better player than you think. The Panthers defense is much better than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Add all those things together, and I think the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow saves their ass one more time, 21-20, and we're not happy, and we're very concerned. And Joe Burrow pulled a miracle, and we better beat Pittsburgh. And I just think that's where we're going to be after this.
Oh, wait,
game.
are we happy that it's not Baker Mayfield?
No, PJ Walker is a much better player than Baker Mayfield is.
Yeah, no.
I mean, significant.
Baker Mayfield is fucking terrible, but he somehow made a deal with the devil where he's like, I want to.
No, but we just found out. We just found out on Monday night.
But I want to beat the Bengals.
We just found out on Monday night it wasn't Baker.
Yeah.
It was Kevin Stefanski. Mm-hmm. Kevin Stefanski owns Zac Taylor, like owns his soul, and Zac Taylor's been coached around in circles every time he's met Kevin Stefanski. That's the best coach the Browns have had since they moved back to Cleveland, undoubtedly. The guy's really good at his job. And any Browns fans, if you hear a Browns fan wanting to fire Kevin Stefanski, feed that flame, because we would love for them to get rid of him. That would be the dumbest thing they've done in a very long time. That'd be the dumbest thing they've done since drafting Johnny Manziel in the first round. If they fire Kevin Stefanski. So I sure hope they do that. I think Joe Burrow saves their ass. They're 21-20 win. I think they have the bye week to fix stuff.
21-20 win?
21-20
is what you're
21-20, and on the I know you tweeted out, Matt, put on the tweet, Joe Burrow saves everybody's ass, and we're not happy. Like, I don't think this is going to be a happy bye week. I do not. I just don't see this team putting it together against Carolina and looking like they did against Atlanta. And you know what? We just can't beat the Browns. The problems are too systemic. You have injuries to arguably 3 of your 4 best players that aren't going to play in this game. And is there a third wide receiver worth a damn? Because Mike Thomas isn't any good.
Mike Thomas is not it.
I can't believe this team. The Mike Thomas decision was one that baffled me in the preseason, and it baffled me again on Monday night.
I mean, I liked Auden Tate.
Yeah, Auden Tate would be better than Mike Thomas, but I think Kendrick Pryor, signing somebody off the street, I don't know, something like that. But I think 21-20, 21-20, ugly win, late win. And we're like, man, I don't think this team can make the playoffs. Or I think they'll make the playoffs, but it's because of Joe, and we didn't do enough to take advantage of this, and the Joe Mixon regression sucks.
Yeah, we won't have enough confidence going into that playoff game that they're a team to beat.
No, it just becomes what it was last year. And remember, this is kind of what the Bengals were last year. It's like, all right, Joe's got to save us. Saved him against Jacksonville, saved him here, saved him there. And that's not a way to win Super Bowls. I mean, you're supposed to have a really good team that gets your quarterback in the playoffs easy, and then you ask your quarterback to save your ass in the playoffs. And right now, the Bengals are just, Joe Burrow's got to keep playing at this high level, elite level, 113 passer rating level for them to have a chance of making the playoffs right now with where they're at.
I'm going to go 26-16.
26-16. I don't mind that. I mean, I could see, again, it's Joe Burrow, so he could throw for 530 yards and, they win by 40. That's possible, but they can't run the ball. And they don't have enough.
This team has been so up and down in terms of consistency and meeting expectations.
Yeah. Do you think maybe they needed to get their ass kicked? Let's be positive for a second.
Well, so we talk. let's be positive for the last.
Let's be
5
positive
minutes of this
for the
show.
last 5 minutes before the sun comes in and ruins us.
I already see it peaking. Yeah, but I mean, we thought that was the first few games of the season. So
yeah, but
that's all games leading into the bye is. Well, I don't know how we won any of these fucking games, but the Bengals got punched on the mouth, and now they woke up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened. I hate saying that's what happened last year, but at the same time, when you lose those first 2 close games, you can talk yourself into a lot. And I think that the Bengals, as an organization, as a team, as a locker room, as a coaching staff, talked them. And then they had the Atlanta game. It just felt like they walked out onto the field against Cleveland and thought it was just going to happen. And when Myles Garrett tipped that ball in the air and it got intercepted, you felt just, and they were like, oh my God, maybe it is the Browns. And then as soon as that happened, it just felt like the team was gone. And then they got their ass pummeled. And maybe that's the wake-up call of like, it's not just going to happen, fellas. Just because you're great doesn't mean it's going to happen.
We can't just game plan and go, looking on paper, our wide receiver is better than yours. Our running back is not close to yours.
Yeah.
Which, especially watching Nick Chubb be able to run the ball, and then you flip it, and you're watching Joe Mixon, and you're just like, damn.
Yeah,
I want a Nick Chubb.
The lines are
give me a Nick Chubb.
The lines are different, but at the same time, like Nick Chubb, I guaranteed would probably be averaging 5 yards a rush behind the Bengals line, and
5 whole yards.
He's averaging
amazing.
He averages 5.9 in Cleveland. So
I know. No, I know.
But yeah,
we don't. What are we at? We're averaging less than a yard right now.
Less than like 3.5 yards a carry, I think.
5 whole yards. Mm-hmm. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think that. I think there's some systemic issues, and I think that there's a systemic cultural issue because of the Super Bowl run, and I think that there'll be a lot of admissions of that after the season, and I think that it'll play itself out. It's 21-20. My one hope of maybe being wrong is that this team was just kind of resting on their laurels, and those close losses didn't actually wake them up, and they've been coasting this whole time, and there's a chance.
I don't know if that's better,
but also they're young. That is totally possible, especially on offense. They are so young on offense in so many key leadership positions that they really could have been just coasting in terms of all these things. The word coasting is hard to quantify in the sport of football, but maybe this is a little jolt to the system that, you're not just more talented than everybody. And if you don't show up, if you don't play with effort, if you don't play with focus, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to get blown out. Because I think this team thought they were unblowoutable. And I think we all thought that as well. I mean, it had been since the Chargers that they'd gotten blown out, and they came back in that game. So you had this feeling of invincibility that maybe needed to be pulled away. So
yeah, I like that word, unblowoutable.
Unblowoutable. That's what
the Bengals discovered, that they are not unblowoutable.
They are not unblowoutable. They are blowoutable.
Please use that in a sentence, please.
Okay. All right.
Unblowoutable.
All right, Matt. Good stuff today.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, we got happy vibes going into the bye week.
I think they'll win, but we won't be happy.
Okay. You are no longer head in the clouds, Lucas. Like
did you watch that shit?
Yes, I watched.
Did you watch that shit?
That game broke you, and you immediately came out with the next game is fucking must win. I think they're going to win. I'm still not going to be happy about it. That's how bad that Monday night game was.
Yeah, no, because that Monday night game, Matt, was a chance for Joe to win MVP, for the Bengals to join the Chiefs and the Bills as clearly the NFL's elite, to bury the Browns, to do all these things that before the season you said you were going to do, and you could have done all of that despite an 0-2 start. And not only did you not win the game, which might have been acceptable had it been close, but you gave the most embarrassing performance on a primetime game since Brian Hoyer walked in on a Thursday night and Andy Dalton posted a 3 passer rating, right? So
the 2.
Yeah, well, the Bengals got beat worse, it felt like, in the game Monday night, and Joe Burrow had a 96 rating.
Yeah.
So, like, that's how bad Monday
Andy
was.
Dalton has been looking great. All he does is check down to Alvin Kamara and he just watches
Chuck it up
his
to
stats
Chris
go up.
Olave.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, the sun's coming in my eyes. Ah!
There it is.
Time
The
to say
sun
bye.
in Lucas's eyes means that we are done for the day.
See y'all
next week.